WordPress powers over 40% of the internet today. And while WordPress core is quite secure by now, if you've ever done anything on WordPress like I did, you know that you need WordPress plugins for even small things. And those plugins, they are not that secure. But the problem was not finding bugs for them in my past. The problem was monetizing them well. But it has changed now, and in this video I will show you both how to start auditing WordPress plugins and how to monetize them even if the plugin itself does not have a bug bounty program. Enjoy! This video is sponsored by Wordfence, but I will tell you more about it later. So the first thing that you need for hacking WordPress is the WordPress instance. For this, I recommend you to use Docker, and I actually use a Docker compose file created by Justin from the Critical Thinking Bug Bounty podcast. You just save this file locally, the Docker compose YAML, and then you run Docker compose app, and it does everything for you. And your instance is ready in, it can take even a few minutes if you don't have the resources downloaded. And then you can access the local instance on localhost port 1337. You just have to go through the usual installation steps. Doesn't matter things that you put in here because it's only for you anyway. And then you log in, you have your instance of WordPress. Then we are interested in WordPress plugins. So we'll just go to the plugins part and install, I click add new plugin and install a plugin. I have a prepared one for the presentation. Is this one, just click install. Then you possibly have to click activate or something like this. And then the plugin is installed. And always, as with every website or every target that I test, the first thing is to just start using the thing. So in this case, I just need to use this shortcode on a page that will, so I can just see how normally the requests are sent. I can just paste it somewhere here, click update. And then when I see this page, I must be unauthenticated. So I will open it in the incognito window. Then I will see the feedback part, and I can also submit any response. I can submit any response, and now I finally have some request in Burp with my response. It's this one. Here's my response. Here's everything. And when auditing the source code, one of the first things I do, the big thing is I have a request here. And now I want to find the part of the source code that's responsible for this response. And usually your best bet to do this in pretty much any technology is to just look by using the endpoint name. In this case, it's responses, because we can also see this endpoint has the one number. It's probably the parameter, it's probably the form ID. And if you install the Docker the way I showed you, it creates the WP content directory, and then the plugins are downloaded here. So you don't even have to, download them manually to your computer. They are just synchronized in the folder outside Docker. And this is the plugin that I'm interested in. So I will mark find in folder, and now I'm only finding stuff inside this folder. I also want to limit this to PHP files, so I will do this, and it gives us a few responses. Now, the part you are looking for now in WordPress is register REST route, because this plugin created sort of a new endpoint in WordPress, and this is one of the ways that WordPress plugins use to do this. I will also show you another way to achieve this later. And the syntax of this is basically Here is the base path, which in this case is just a string. Possibly it can be a constant or a variable or something. Then you have the endpoint name, which does match the endpoint I am looking for, because I'm looking for this, and it looks correctly. And then there are another arguments. Among others, there is an argument called methods, and we can see that this particular piece refers to a get method, but the request I am looking for is actually a post, which means this is not the part that I'm looking for. We can also see here a post, but this one is to responses/trash. We can see responses restore, also post, but none of these match my results. So I will go to another results here, and I can finally find another REST route that matches the route I am looking for and matches the method I am looking for. So I'm pretty convinced this is the one that I'm interested in. Now, the very important thing in the syntax of this register REST route arguments array is the permission callback, because it tells WordPress which users can perform a specific action. In this case, this means that it's just a function that always returns true. It's quite a strange PHP syntax. So it means this endpoint is unauthenticated, and it makes a lot of sense because, as you remember, I just opened an incognito window to open this. So definitely it makes sense because this is a route available to anyone. And when you're looking for bugs, you should definitely focus on authenticated bugs because they just have the most impact. If we take a look at these endpoints, there is an actual function that does a permission check. Let's see how this looks like. We can find this function in the same file, which calls other function with this argument. So we have to look for this. It doesn't really tell us anything. There is a strange capabilities array. So this is what we are looking for now. And finally, after some time, we get to an array of what roles can perform what actions, or what actions can be performed by what roles. This is not a standard way. There's no one specific way to do this, but generally by looking for the strings like I just did, I just searched for strings in this code. I can see that the view results capability, which is the one I'm interested in, can be performed by administrator or editor. Administrator, by default in WordPress, administrator can install plugins, so the administrator can execute code. So any vulnerability that requires the administrator capability is out of scope, at least the server-side vulnerability where the attacker needs this account. Editor, it's a bit better because it's not the highest privilege level, but it's definitely better if you can exploit the bug unauthenticated or with the minimal permission level. So we'll come back to the code we're interested in. So these endpoints, they can be executed by administrators or editors. So I'm not looking for them at the moment because I want to find an unauthenticated vulnerability. So I come back to this route. So now we know what's permission callback. We know all the other parts. And then there is the callback argument, which is actually the function that processes the response. So I can look for the function with the name. It's very often in the same file. And now I have just found the function that processed my response. We won't get into details of this because it's not that interesting actually, at least at the moment. But I have just found the code that processed this request. And this is for me always the first step when doing any kind of source code review. Before I get to another way that plugins can define routes, and I will also show you an actual bug in one of the plugins, why to even look for them? Because as I've told you in the intro, it used to be quite difficult to monetize them. Of course, if you have an unauthenticated severe bug like server-side bug or an XSS, you can report the 0-day to many companies and possibly get paid for them. But there are a few problems with this. One problem is that often WordPress is out of scope and you will just not get paid for these bugs. The other problem is you need the bug to be either a server-side bug or an XSS, because it cannot be anything with user interaction. Even if you have like an account takeover that only requires one click or requires the victim to open a website, that's too much for you to get paid. And the plugin developers usually don't host a bug bounty program. So these plugins, even though they power big part of the internet, were hard to monetize. But now there is a Wordfence bug bounty program, which covers every single plugin above 50,000 installs. And I think it's a really, really great opportunity. Wordfence actually sponsors this video, and I'm really happy to collaborate with them because I genuinely think it's a good opportunity to make money, to learn source code review, because these plugins, they are not very secure. I looked at some of them and there are really, really a lot of holes in them. And above 50,000 installs, there are over 800 plugins, which means millions of lines of PHP code that's potentially vulnerable. And if you're interested in taking part, go to bbre.dev/wf, like Wordfence. So let's come back to another way that a plugin might define a route. Let's install a plugin that you maybe know from the bounty vlog if you watched it carefully, the Monster Insights plugin for Google Analytics. It's one of the most popular plugins out there. And the way this plugin works is a bit different. When you interact with it, there are no requests to the endpoint like before with the REST route. There are only requests to admin ajax.php, and there's the action parameter, which is actually crucial here. Because the other way I observed plugins defining routes was using the add action function. And the way it works is a bit similar to the REST route. First, there's the action name, which is actually the parameter that we can see here, the action. And then there's the callback function that will serve a particular request. And one difference between the register REST route and this, that you should immediately see that first, there is no method here, but it's not as big of a problem. But there's also no defined way for the permission check. In the register REST route, we saw the particular argument, which was a function to verify permissions. In this case, there is nothing like this. So in every single controller, the code should verify if the current user has capabilities or has permissions to make a particular action. If you are in security for a longer time, you know that if developers have to do something over and over and over again, like this in the if statement, eventually they will forget about it. So there are definitely loads of access control bugs with this. And apart from this, there is PHP code which processes the response. And unfortunately, I can't tell you how to start hacking WordPress plugins. I can tell you how to define routes, but eventually what you need to be able to read this code, analyze it, and find bugs. So let's come back to the user feedback plugin and let's actually find a real vulnerability. One of the ways that I like to search the code for vulnerabilities is to use a regular expression like this. It means there's an apostrophe, which means I am looking for something inside the string. If the target would be using double quotes, I would also have double quotes here. If it would be JavaScript, I will also probably have backticks here. Then I'm looking for opening the HTML tag, then for anything, and then I'm looking for the way to insert user data. So essentially, I'm looking for string concatenation that uses HTML tags, because then I know that if HTML tags will be inside concatenated strings, potentially I can look for XSSs. And in PHP, they use %s to define the variable inside the string. So that's why I just have the percentage, because sometimes it's not s, it's something else. But in general, it does work. There are a few results, and I want to look at this one in particular, because I know it leads somewhere. It has the A element with the href attribute that uses the mail to protocol, which means when you click on the link like this, the application to send an email is being opened. And we can see that this syntax, I'm not really sure what this one means, but it does mean user data, because they use the sprint function and they put the row value there. So let's review what's the row value, what happens here. And the function is called getQuestionAnswerHTML, and it just takes the question as the parameter. And we can see that the row value is just the value of the question. And if we take a look at the request we sent earlier to this endpoint when submitting the response, it looked like this. We had our answers, we had the question ID, and we had the value, where's the string that I put in. So now we can see that the row value that we are interested in, this is potentially the culprit of this vulnerability, is just the response. But we also see the if statement here that the question type must be an email. So now let's get to the backend. Let's get to the form that we are, or the survey that we are using. So we have the email capture, the name of the question. I'll just name it the email, and then we can save it. To make changes, please duplicate the server, create a new one. We can create a new one. We'll duplicate this survey because there we already have some responses, and now we can use the email capture field and the email name to create a new survey. We don't really care about many of these, but we want this to be published. Save and publish. Nice. And then we have to open our page and change the shortcode to 2. Then we update it, and when we open the other website, we can see that it allows us to input the email here. Now when we come back to burp and find this response and send it to intruder, to repeater, we can see the value of our response. Let's now just try to inject an arbitrary email, followed by escaping the attribute and injecting another one. And we send it. We wait for a little bit because it sends an email. In the meantime, when in the cut, I also configured the email client, because this code is actually triggering in the email generation. You can see we are in the emails directory in the user feedback email response notification class, because this bug only shows in the email. It's unexploitable as far as I know. That's the only reason why I'm showing you this. I cannot show you a real bug. And we can see that the email was sent. I have my environment to see the emails here. And if we take a look at the HTML source, it loads for a little bit, but we can see that we did inject a new attribute into here. Now, in emails, usually email clients do something to prevent this. Here as well, here's a CSP on this website that I use for testing emails that prevents this alert from actually popping up. And the same goes for any WordPress plugins that I used to test these things. Here, if we see the response, it's sanitized, so the alert. So here it's like we didn't have the injection of the of the attribute, but before sanitization we had. So this bug, as far as I know, has no impact because it's only injecting attributes into the email, and email are untrusted by default. But if you can find the email plugin for WordPress that allows you to see the emails that you are sending and does not sanitize them properly, feel free to use the half of the bug that I've shown you to basically exploit this and get the bounty. And that's it. It's as simple as this. So now what's left to be done for you is to actually go and hack WordPress yourself. Remember that by hacking on this program, you can make money yourself, but also, since Wordfence is sponsoring this video, you also support me. So if you're interested, go to bbre.dev/wf and just start hacking. They are now running a promotion and you can get up to $10,000 for vulnerabilities in WordPress plugins. It's a crazy good opportunity and I'm definitely going to participate myself. For now, thank you for watching this video and goodbye.